We're always told to eat our veggies for a healthy brain. But what if I told you that some of the most common ones could actually be increasing your risk of a stroke, especially once you're over 60? Well, that is the pretty controversial claim from a brain doctor that's been making some serious waves. And today, we're going to break down exactly what this source is saying.
So this is the claim that really stops you in your tracks, right? It's from a YouTube channel called Gumish Nasil Salik, and they're basically saying that compounds in everyday foods could be creating a perfect storm for a stroke, literally, while you sleep. So let's dive into the evidence they're presenting.
It's a wild question, isn't it? It makes you second-guess all these foods that we've always been told are just purely good for us. And that's exactly what the source material we're looking at today is asking us to do.
All right, let's get right to the heart of it. The source lays out this countdown. 5 super common vegetables that it says we really need to be careful with. We're going to go through them one by one and look at the exact reasoning and the data they use.
Kicking off the list at number 5 is spinach. Yep, you heard that right. Popeye's favorite, the ultimate health food. But according to this video, its biggest strength might actually be its biggest weakness for anyone over 60. And the problem, they claim, boils down to something called oxalate crystals.
So the way the source describes this is pretty graphic. It claims these oxalate crystals act like tiny little shards of glass, literally scraping and damaging the inside of your arteries. And to really drive the point home, the video tells the story of Sarah, a 58-year-old accountant. She apparently ate a spinach salad every single day and ended up in the emergency room with stroke symptoms, all allegedly because of dangerously high oxalate levels.
And they don't just leave it at that, they bring out the stats. The source cites a 15-year Harvard study, and it claims this study found that people who ate spinach more than 4 times a week had a 23% higher risk of stroke compared to those who barely ate it at all. So, what's the solution? Well, the video suggests a simple swap. Trade your spinach for arugula. They claim it has a similar nutritional profile, but get this, with 70% fewer of those oxalate crystals. A really clear, actionable piece of advice right there.
Coming in at number 4 on the list is another health food darling, beets. Yeah, they're famous for being loaded with nitrates that are supposed to improve blood flow. But here's the twist. The source argues that for older arteries that aren't as flexible, this can actually be a really serious problem.
They even came up with a name for this, the hydraulic hammer effect. They described this sudden drop and then a massive rebound in blood pressure that allegedly just pounds on your aging blood vessels, weakening them. The source even tells the story of a 62-year-old cardiologist who, ironically, had a stroke after drinking beet juice every morning for 3 years.
And of course, there's a statistic to go with it, which you can see right here on this chart. The video points to a University of Michigan study. It says, this study found that high beet consumption, that's the bar on the right, was linked to a 31% higher stroke risk, specifically for people who already had high blood pressure.
So, the suggested swap here? Sweet potatoes. The idea, according to the source, is that they give you similar nutrients but without that intense nitrate blast that could cause those wild blood pressure swings. All right, moving on to number 3.
Okay, at number 3, we have a true kitchen staple, the tomato. Now, this one was surprising to me. But the source claims that as we get older, our body's ability to handle certain compounds inside tomatoes just tanks, turning them from a friend into an enemy.
The source says it's basically a 2-pronged attack. First, there's this natural toxin called solanine. They claim that our ability to break it down drops by 60% after age 60, which leads to inflammation. Then, at the same time, they say histamines in tomatoes can make the blood vessels in your brain contract all erratically, messing with critical blood flow.
And now for the runner-up. Number 2 on the source's list of dangerous vegetables is the humble white potato. The argument here isn't about some weird toxin. It's all about what it does to our blood sugar. So the video really hones in on this process called glycation. It explains that the huge glucose spike you get from eating potatoes, which they say have a higher glycemic index than pure table sugar, causes sugar molecules to basically caramelize and stick to the proteins in your artery walls. This makes them stiff and brittle. And get this for a comparison, the source claims that every one of those high glucose spikes ages your blood vessels as much as smoking 2 cigarettes.
To back this up, they cite a 20-year-long Swedish study, and the number they pull from it is just staggering. According to the source, this study found that eating potatoes more than 4 times a week was linked to a 67% increase in stroke risk.
And that brings us to number 1, the vegetable that the source calls the ultimate stroke catalyst, the one it says is more dangerous than all the others, and it is corn.
According to the video, corn is a triple threat. It points to a really high ratio of inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids, special proteins called zines that thicken your blood, and possible contamination with artery-damaging mycotoxins. And then they hit you with the biggest number yet. From a Harvard study, a supposed 94% increase in stroke risk from high corn consumption. Just wow.
Okay, whew. I know that was a lot of pretty scary information. But the video doesn't just leave you there with a list of foods to be afraid of. It makes a big pivot to highlight 3 vegetables that it claims have powerful protective effects on your brain.
So, let's flip the script. Let's look at the proactive side of this. According to the source, these 3 vegetables don't just avoid causing harm, they actively go to work repairing damage and making your whole vascular system stronger.
So here they are, the heroes of the story. The source praises broccoli for its sulforaphane, which it says can cut your stroke risk by 52%. It talks up purple cabbage for its anthocyanins, which supposedly act like natural armor for your arteries, reducing risk by 68%. And finally, it calls garlic the ultimate stroke destroyer, saying its key compound, allicin, is even more powerful than aspirin and can slash stroke risk by an incredible 79%. But for garlic, the source gives a very specific and crucial pro tip. To really unlock its power, you have to crush the cloves first and then let them sit for 10 minutes before you cook them. Apparently, that waiting period is what allows the chemical reaction to happen that creates all that powerful, protective allicin.
So to wrap this all up and make it super simple, the source provides this handy at-a-glance guide. For each of the 5 vegetables it flags as dangerous, spinach, beets, tomatoes, potatoes, and corn, it offers a simple, direct swap. It's all presented as a really practical way to apply this information to your own diet. Ultimately, the source material we've just walked through really challenges a lot of the nutritional advice we take for granted. It kind of forces us to ask if the very definition of healthy might actually change as we get older. So the final question is really for you. After hearing all these claims, what healthy food in your own diet are you going to look at just a little bit differently?